Apart from a couple of swipes at billionaire miners, the Gillard government is doing everything it can to show it really cares about business. Yesterday it was buying Australian and meeting with the PM's manufacturing task force. Today it was the new Business Advisory Forum that now meets on the eve of COAG gatherings. One of the 26 business and political leaders there today joins me now. James MacKenzie is chairman of Pacific brands Mirvac and Glouster Coal. James, welcome.
Thanks, Jiggy.
Big focus, of course, today was on streamlining regulation and environmental assessments and approvals. There was quite a backlash from the Greens after the meeting, feeling that, it's getting rid of scrutiny. Bob Brown saying it's emasculating our laws. Was that talked about at all?
I think it's disappointing if that's how Senator Brown reacted to the communique that was released at the end of today. There's no intention in anything that was discussed or promulgated in that communique to do anything to reduce the level of environmental protection in Australia, and that remains a priority. And it's specifically said in the communique for all levels of government. Yeah. What the initiative that's in the communique relates to is the process and the duplication and the cumbersome nature of the process across two levels of government, which leads to delays in the approvals of quite large and quite important projects.
You were there around this. I mean, it's quite a big table, it looked like. When that sort of issue came up, was the issue of a concern of Greens discussed at all, or was there any feel for that on the government and indeed the Premier's side that sort of environmental streamlining, fast-tracking would be taken on board and acted on?
You've got your green blouse on this evening, too.
Yeah, well, no, they say green is good on Wall Street, don't they?
That's right. That's not. Let me go back to it. I obviously didn't make my point clearly enough. That wasn't the issue. What we're talking about here is approval processes. So the approval process is not going to cover in any reduced way the environmental protection safeguards in any major project. What the Business Council proposal, which was well received at both state and federal levels, is that the process needs to be less cumbersome, the duplication in the process needs to be eradicated, and as a consequence we're going to be more agile and responsive in terms of dealing with the challenges of getting these major projects going.
What was the feel of the meeting like? Tony Shepherd was there as BCA president. Did he handle things well?
Tony did a terrific job. Tony and Jennifer Westacott and the BCA, they set the agenda. But I think also the Prime Minister and the Premiers and the Chief Ministers demonstrated that they were fair income by taking the time out of their busy schedules to sit down ahead of COAG and. Well, I think from wherever we come from, we've always looked with bemusement in the business community as the way in which COAG works and the conflicts that's baked into our federal-state relationships because of the way in which we federated, which of course is exacerbated by party politics. Well,
there are still challenges, of course, and one of the things that the forum is suggesting is that let me get this straight, that there is a removal of unnecessary carbon reduction and energy efficiency initiatives once the carbon tax comes in because of the doubling up. Now, I noticed that New South Wales today the government is calling for the Commonwealth government to ditch the 2020 renewable energy targets altogether. These targets are going to go, aren't they?
That was no doubt something that was, that wasn't discussed at the forum.
But it looks like everything's moving there. Now you've got the New South Wales government calling on them to go all together. That's a big shift. I
hope things are moving, Ticky, and I think that's the whole idea of getting the Prime Minister and the Premiers getting a group of people under Tony Shepherd's leadership together was to get things moving.
But do you think that'll happen? Do you think those targets will go?
I don't really have a view of that at the moment.
All right, let me ask you about another sticky issues because the forum wants to finish the seamless national economy reforms. Now, one area very close to your heart, I know, having chaired the TAC and Victorian Work Cover down there, is work health and safety. But that's been a nightmare to try and get everybody to agree. Do you think COAG can do it?
I think that there was some constructive moves in this. Look, I contextualise this by looking at, and I'm probably showing my age in the way in which I answer it, by looking back to when I started working, each state and territory had its own Companies Act. and all the inefficiencies that came out of that, and it was always hard to get a National Companies Act up, and all the efficiencies that came from it. And the state governments, no one in the room today demurred from the proposal that harmonised occupational health and safety regulation in Australia was something that everybody should support. The issue is how to get there. How to get there. Well, I think that if you look at New South Wales under the O'Farrell government have made some very significant advances in terms of that harmonisation framework.
All right. Well,
they couldn't get it all through because they didn't have control of the upper house.
The other area is the national licensing system. It's supposed to be in place in July 1 to get these skilled workers, Sparky's plumbers, moving around the country. And the PM brought this up when she actually created the forum. But NOLA, the licensing authority, hasn't even got a chief executive yet. It's April. I mean, it's a joke. They're not going to get this organised, are they?
Well, it's going to happen, Hickey. I think you've got to be an optimist when you've got the COAG leaders sitting around a table with the business.
Even with all those Liberal premiers.
I thought the Liberal premiers today, the expectation for those of us in business who've looked from afar at these sorts of things was that there would be far more rancour in the discussions. There wasn't any rancour. I sat next to Barry O'Farrell. He was on the same page all the way through. I think the Business Council has done a terrific job in preparing everybody for the discussions that we had. Now what we've got to do is see the results.
Indeed, that's a very positive outcome. Thank you very much, James MacKenzie, for joining us.
Thanks, Dickie.